Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody inside and outside the ballpark. My name is NovedPlayer, and welcome to episode 73 of the Noved Nodes podcast, where we talk to a lot of different creators and communities inside of the platform. I'm your host, and with me today, we have an amazing world and asset creator who's been working alongside a bunch of different communities. We have the owner of Community Oasis. We have Emil. Emil, welcome to the show. Hope you're doing well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, of course. Well, for the general listening audience at home, what exactly do you do inside of VRChat?
Yeah, I create assets and worlds for VRChat. I also make DJ events and different scenarios for role-play groups and all that. So yeah.
No, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, kind of to get a little bit into topic here. So what kind of brought you into VRChat in the first place?
Ooh, that's a long time ago. It was mainly just the creative aspect of basically creating whatever you want and seeing the open public being happy about it.
Oh, fair. I would say, yeah, obviously a lot of creative minds when it comes to, VRChat and everything. So, what kind of got you into like asset and world creation?
Ooh. I have basically always had something about creating environments and different kind of buildings for people, really. But the first thing that ever got me started was that I saw some really nice worlds that I really liked. They were really cool, and I was like, how difficult is it to basically build that? And I was like, oh, this is actually not that bad. So I started using Blender a couple of years ago and just started tinkering with it, and yeah. Then I ported it over to Unity and made the world.
No, fair enough. Well, I would say, obviously, with how many worlds you have under your belt, obviously each one of them has, their own aesthetic when it comes to what you do. So I guess, kind of one of the first things in that regard, because obviously when it comes to Unity and like VRChat, obviously, there is a lot when it comes to like Unity and Blender. So I gotta say, when did you kind of start learning how to use Unity and Blender?
I started 8 years ago doing Blender, and then after that, I found out there was another game I used to play called Unturned that I started doing a lot of Unity stuff for. Then I moved over back to VRChat. I was like, this is the same engine. I can do the things that I used to do on that game over here. And then that has been over 5 years ago. So yeah.
Fair enough. Well, obviously, since you've been kind of creating for a little bit now, obviously there's been a lot of, changes with Unity versions and, SDK versions. So I guess one of the questions before we go too deep into the rabbit hole of your worlds, what are some of the challenges you may have faced, like going through different Unity versions and SDK versions?
Mainly, whenever I did do some stuff, the coding language would actually change drastically. Like sometimes I would think that one object is like, oh, it's fine, and then another one was completely broken. It was literally just changing a line of code, and then it would just work again. And that was some of the most challenges I've had because they kept appearing quite oftenly.
No, fair enough. I'll say there's, obviously, there's so many different types of like coding languages when it comes to Unity, not to mention VRChat. Obviously with Udon and Udon Graph and, Udon Sharp and all the other variants. And I know up on the horizon, we have Soba eventually on its way to, VRChat and stuff. So I guess kind of to go into that, was there anything that inspired you when it comes to creations and like some of the worlds you make?
The main reason why I wanted to make the worlds that I did was to basically inspire other creators to basically build whatever they want. Because a lot of the things, since I've been playing this game for many, many years, is that it's very difficult for people to basically wrap their head around the different things. And I thought, I want to change that. So I also made a group to basically help the people in learning the different things. And whenever people say that they're amazed of what I do, it makes me happy because maybe, just maybe, I have endorsed someone to get their creative ideas out.
No, absolutely. And obviously when it comes to like your asset creation, because you do make things like furniture packs and
Mm.
other things, so I could definitely see that benefiting a lot. And obviously, with some of the recent promotions you've been doing, around VRChat, I do hope that has helped you a little bit when it comes to like, getting your name out there and all your stuff. Because obviously you've exhibited at a few of the conventions here in VRChat, from Virtual Market to Project Community. So in your own personal opinion, have you seen any benefit to when it comes to being at these events?
Most definitely, I have. I've seen a lot of people that didn't know what it was to now actually going in and actually seeing that it's really good, the assets that I do create.
Fair. I was gonna say, because obviously when it comes to, getting your name out, and I feel like this could be something helpful for all people that are interested in getting their name out there or their creations or communities, whatever. But going out into these events and, exhibiting and putting your face out there when it comes to these bigger events definitely shows some type of light for your own stuff. So it's good to hear that, you kind of had some good experiences when it comes to, showcasing your stuff. And I know we'll throw some videos up on the screen of some of your booths, like at VCAT and PJKT. So I guess kind of one of the things I wanted to ask, when it comes to showcasing at all these events, is there a preferred like way of like showcasing your stuff, or, do you think the booth is kind of the best way?
I always like to, whenever I'm going to different conventions, is to make a unique experience for people to see what I had to offer at the time. Um, for the different things.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say, because obviously with each booth that you've had, there's different things going on, and I know you also do have a world specifically, like to demo your furniture pack. So I guess this is a good time to go into some of these worlds, because obviously when it comes to kind of the order, if I recall correctly, the first world that you had made, or at least the one that's published, would be your
Mm.
home world, the Emilhauge
Yeah.
home world. Am I saying that right? I always feel like I want.
Yeah.
Okay, Emilhauge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, so I guess what, when it comes to your home world specifically, um what is something that made you want to create that world in particular?
Honestly, I normally, whenever I create my world, I basically go around, find some pictures of what I basically want, and then I just put them together, find which things matches and which thing doesn't. And sometimes I would even get feedback from some other people, like if they want a specific kind of like plant, I will try to create that and put it in so people would feel more welcome and seeing, oh, this is a thing I had an idea for. It's here now, and many people can basically see it.
That's amazing. I'd say, it's definitely, it's definitely a fresh start when it comes to everything. Obviously, it being one of the first worlds you put out. So obviously, kind of moving down the timeline a bit. If I recall correctly, the next one you had made, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, was actually Beach Apartment. You know, so what kind of made you want to go with kind of the beach aesthetic and, you know, kind of go down that rabbit hole?
I basically have always liked the Spain, and I thought, huh, if I can't have the different apartments in real life, why not try to make it into a VRChat world? And I then build it onto it, then put a bunch of the different aesthetics that I really like because I really like movies. So I always like to integrate a kind of movie feel into my worlds with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, you know, because obviously when it comes to worlds, I feel like having a video player of some sort or a movie theater aesthetic definitely does help the world regain like its, you know, what's the word? Words are hard. It's super early in the morning for me. I'd say retention. You know, people keep coming back. You know, which is kind of nice. And obviously, you know, there's a lot of great movie worlds out there, but to kind of have one that's, you know, more of an aesthetic with a little small, you know, little theater area, I feel like that definitely is a nice thing when it comes to that. So I guess kind of to go a little bit further in detail with your beach apartment world, you know, because obviously, you know, there's other things in the world. So what kind of made you like want to do that specific layout with that world?
I basically just went for it. I didn't really have any specific plan. I basically, most of my ideas that I basically do is that it comes from my head. So I basically think, oh, this would look nice and this not, right? And then I just draw it out or like find images of it and then I try to structure it. If I like it more than what I think, then I'm gonna go further with the actual idea of it.
Oh, fair enough. You know, obviously, when it comes to if I can stop lagging for 5 seconds. All right, editor cut. Oh no, there, editor cut back in. I don't know why VRChat and Steam Link are just not getting along this past 2 weeks. But back to into topic. You know, obviously, when it comes to all these worlds, you do have little things around the worlds that showcase some of the communities that you work with. You know, and all the people that you're friends with and all that stuff. So, you know, to kind of go into that, what kind of got you started working with communities?
Oof. I basically was really shy back in the days, so I didn't really talk to a lot of communities. But after I think it was the start of PCKT, I started opening myself quite a lot and started talking to a lot of these communities, and I found, huh, these are really chill people to work with. And then I just started working with, and it has been very successful so far, and have seen a lot of great people enjoy the things that I basically clapped on.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess, you know, to give an example for the general listening audience, like what are some of the communities that you work with when it comes to like your stuff?
I work with Metaverse Deacons, William, the Virtual Gauntlet, and I think there's even a couple of other ones that I can't remember on top of my head. But that's just some of the main ones that I do work with quite oftenly.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously, you know, with Metaverse Degen, Virilium, and Virtual Gauntlet, obviously, you know, all three of which, you know, very different communities. While they do most of them work together, you know, they all do different things. So I guess, you know, what was kind of the experience for you, kind of working with these communities in their own right?
Honestly, it has been a great experience really working with, because they all have their different takes on what they want to do and what their plans are for their creative space. And I absolutely love what they're basically doing with the different kind of things. Because also not having a copy of every single thing is also quite refreshing, because when you switch from one group to another, it's whole different things. and that also changes things out.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean that's obviously when it comes because obviously there's so many different types of things when it comes to all three. Like you have the aesthetic of Virtual Gauntlet, which is more I don't want to call it sci-fi, but it's more like a neon like. It's more flashy than like let's say Virilium, which it kind of depends on Virilium because they do all sorts of different venues and stuff. And then, of course, Metaverse Degen, being another one of the amazing podcasts here on VRChat, all three of which having their own aesthetic and their own design choices. I guess one of the things I wanted to ask, because obviously, you've done so many different styles. What's, in your personal opinion, what's one of your favorite things that you have ever created when it comes to your assets?
Oh, that's hard to pick because every single one of them I absolutely love. Uh, but one of the newest stuff, and it's not a group thing, is my world Dutsia, that I used quite a lot of months on creating something because I wanted something fresh to show off. So yeah.
No, fair enough. But yeah, no, it's definitely crazy when it comes to all the different things and stuff you make. So I guess one of the kind of to go in the opposite respect when it comes to, some of the things you make, what's one of the most difficult things that you've created for, let's say, a community or yourself?
Oh, the hardest thing. Hmm. I don't actually know. Um, I think one of the hardest things was basically probably my world, Dutsia, because there's been so many things when it came into the structuring of it. Yeah, I used a lot of hours on it. I think I like woke up at like 8 in the morning until like 12 or 3 at night. So I used a lot of hours on that to basically fix most of the stuff that I did.
No, fair enough. I mean, obviously, going from asset creation to world creation, obviously the world creation is going to take a little bit longer, perfecting the world and testing the world versus, an asset. Which has its own, respective creative process and everything. But obviously, with worlds, you want to make sure that it gets to a certain point to where like people are going to enjoy it, or it's going to be aesthetically pleasing, and not to mention all the different updates. Like now we have VRC light volumes. So that's a thing a lot of world creators are using now. And everything else. So I mean, one of the questions, kind of to go into that a little bit, because obviously you have had some of these worlds for a while. Do you have any plans to maybe do some updates with some of the newer features when it comes to VRChat?
Most definitely. Whenever things come out like the light volumes, like I said, I definitely have plans on adding those things into it and seeing how they basically work. Um, I also have some plans for some brand new coding stuff in the future to go around with. I always like to basically go around, and if I see something that I like, I always try to implement the ways into my world.
No, absolutely. Well, kind of move down the timeline a little bit because obviously there are some other worlds that we didn't touch yet. And feel free to correct me if I mispronounce, because I believe the next world, which was actually I believe this summer that you released, was the is it Deutzia? I feel
That's
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Deutzia. Okay, cool.
It's
Ah.
yeah. It's the name of a flower. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was obviously not English, obviously, but like I knew it was like I looked at it, I was like, I might say this right, I might not. Well, I guess kind of to go into that a little bit, because obviously it is kind of a different aesthetic compared to like the beach world and everything. So what kind of made you want to make Deutzia when it comes to like your world?
The first thing that basically got me started was that I was actually making a booth for a different convention, and then I thought, okay, this looks cool and all that, but there was many mistakes with the current booth that I had. So I was like, okay, then I made another one and then came back to it and saying, this looks really pretty. I don't just want to throw this away. So I basically got in, added a bunch of stuff to it, found some references of different furniture and all that. And I'm like, wait, this could actually be a world. And then I just added more and more stuff to it. And now it is what you see today.
No, fair. And obviously, you already kind of mentioned it, but with the world being named after the flower, what kind of made you want to name it that?
It was actually a collaboration with another creator named xCirrex. We were wrapping our head around trying to find some names for it, and it took a long time. But she basically came up with a really, really great idea of naming it after a specific color of flower, and I was like, "Huh, that actually might work." So we chose that, and it actually fit the colors of the actual wallpaper of the rooms. I was like, damn, I'm gonna choose that.
No, fair. I mean, that's really cool that you kind of came up with a name with another person. Because I feel like definitely it always helps to have somebody help with when it comes to naming things or the creation process. I mean, technically, the Nova Notes podcast, technically, the name itself was a collaboration between me and my head mod Gear Gabo, who was actually the pilot episode. But we probably sat for a good couple of hours just trying to come up with a name because there was so many different names for podcasts out there. When it comes to back in the day, most of them are inactive nowadays, unfortunately. Like there was the VR and Chill. There's the VR Creator podcast, which is originally held by Parzival, who's now running a different podcast. There's also Metaverse Degen. There's also there's so many different podcasts out there. I was like, it was so hard to come up with a name that was original, that kind of fit my aesthetic. And then Gear and I spatballed back and forth, and he essentially was like, what about Noved's notes or something? And I'm like, wait, that's actually kind of genius. So the NN as the acronym, or N squared if you want to call it. But I don't know. We were here. It's funny enough. We were actually in this world, coming up with the idea. And that's when the original, what is it, Welcome to the Nova Notes podcast video came out, which is super outdated now. But it was definitely an entertaining experience to say the least. And now here we are, like a year and a half later, doing crazy wild things. But kind of to go back into topic, now I tangent a little bit. But kind of to go back into topic, so obviously when it comes to because going into these four worlds, obviously each one of them, doing its own thing and being its own aesthetic. Because if I recall correctly, Deutzia was actually the first one that you had creator economy on, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So I guess
Yes, it was.
yeah. So I guess kind of to go a little bit into that. What is it like being a creator, who has access to the creator economy? Like, what was your initial thought when you had gotten invited to the creator economy?
I was absolutely ecstatic about it because I've always liked the things that you could basically add with it. Like you could add roles, you could add cosmetics. Like there were so many things that you could have done with it to basically get support to the actual creator and also get something extra with it. That was one of the main things I really liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I would say, so I guess when it comes to, your worlds, obviously it is a way to support you. But I guess when it comes to your stuff, is there anything in the future when it comes to, using creator economy that you have maybe in the works?
Yeah, so I actually have another wall in the works with another creator that we are going to implement some cosmetics and all that to it. But also for my own world, I have really liked that I could basically lock some kind of cosmetic behind it, like let's just say a wall texture. I really am going forward with that idea. It's still very much work in progress, but hopefully I am gonna make a world around the different kind of things surrounding that.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say obviously there's a lot of amazing things when it comes to that. Not to mention it keeps expanding as, time progresses when it comes to like, people making prefabs for creator economy or, all the other things like, whether it's secret rooms or like you were saying, aesthetics. So I guess kind of to go a little bit off of that topic and kind of more into some of the other worlds, because obviously you had also made a world specifically for a podcast. It's bleh, 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 words are hard as I'm lagging like crazy. But what I was trying to say, you've also made a world for another podcast with Scout the Goldie, known as the Afterbark Podcast Studio. So I guess kind of to, out of curiosity, what kind of led you to work with Scott the Goldie and, make the Afterbark podcast studio?
The main thing that basically got started was that he really wanted a podcast room, and then he knew me as a creator, and then he asked me, "Hey, would you be interested in making a podcast room for me and another person?" And I said, "Sure," because the many things that I do, every single someone either pays or like I do stuff for free. I always learn new abilities and new things to basically structure my world. So it's also a learning experience for myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to any type of creation, working with other people's is always a learning experience. So I guess kind of to dive back a little bit, because obviously, working with all these creators and stuff, what are some of the big things when it comes to, world creation that you've learned when it comes to working with all these people? Like some of the notable things that you've learned, like working with people.
It's that they do their ways quite differently to literally how they structure their worlds and everything. And it's really fun to see on how they do their different ways.
Fair enough. Well, obviously, speaking of, collaborations and stuff, because while these are all your specifically published worlds, you did mention you've worked with other communities and stuff, and other creators. I know obviously one of the biggest examples is Code Advanced, the creator of Virtual Gauntlet. But you and Code actually worked on a world together. When it comes to the space station world that you created, which is the Station G88 Horizon's Edge. So I guess, kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask, what kind of got you two together to, make this, amazing space station?
Yeah, so funny enough, it was a Space Jam that we were going around some different robot worlds and like space worlds. And we were like, should we actually go do it? And it's like, he basically said to me, if I'm up for it, then you are probably also. And then we're like, yeah, let's go for it. And then we just went for it. So we also had about a month to create all of the things. At the time, we didn't know that we could have used pre-made assets, but we thought it was gonna be nicer actually making things from scratch. So we did that.
Hello, everyone. Real quick, just want to pause the episode right here. I want to thank this month's monthly supporter, Drowns, and the monthly tipper, Lion Turtle 21. Thank you both so much for the amazing support. If you want to support the podcast, feel free to check out the Noved Squad Hangout, where I have all the creator economy stuff and all that stuff. But, of course, if you're making sure to come back to check out some of the other episodes, might as well hit that subscribe button. And make sure to join the group today, because we have some amazing events that we're being showcased at that you don't want to miss. Like the Virtualis Res Online Film Festival on July 22nd at 11 a.m. Central Time. I'll be showcasing 6 different episodes from the podcast with a little bit of interview sections as well as July 26th and 27th for For Harvest Audio Cosmico, where I'll be exhibiting a booth and be DJing on their main lineup. So make sure to join the group today. And of course, let's get back into the episode. Woo! No, fair enough. I would say, obviously, that's one of the more expansive worlds when it comes to like some of the stuff you've done. Because obviously, as we are currently in the month of July, you guys have also put out a small teaser for a horror version of the world. But before we go too far into that aspect, I do want to kind of talk a little bit about the world itself. So obviously, with the world itself being a space station, obviously yet another aesthetic that you guys that you've worked on. So going from some of these more IRL based aesthetics to now space, what was kind of the transition, kind of going from those aesthetics, what was some of what was like some of the experiences going from those aesthetics over to like a space station? Like what was kind of the thought process on that?
We basically went for, because they basically had a line of what we could basically do in the space station. So we thought, okay, let's find images and all that. And it was quite unique, to say at least, that working with that, because I myself have not really created that many space themed worlds. So it was a learning curve for myself. But as many things, when you basically structure things in Blender, it can be a bit easier, basically laying everything out, and even on paper.
Oh, fair. I mean, obviously, obviously you haven't experienced space yourself, but obviously there's a lot of videos out there that kind of showcase space and space stations and stuff. Not to mention like the little mascot you guys created. So I guess kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask, what kind of made you want to create that little mascot that you guys have?
uh, Funny enough, we wanted to be more unique in the space, because at the time we didn't know what other people were creating. So we were like, okay, how are we going to add more enticements to the world? Why not add a mascot, Astro Buddy? And that was one of the main things. And then we started doing some sketches of it, and Code basically made the whole model from scratch. And we just put it in the world, and people absolutely loved it. And we were like, hell yeah. So, yeah.
No, fair. And obviously, the little cute guy as he is, now kind of going into the other topic I brought up earlier. Obviously there is a, teaser right now, for the horror related world. So I guess kind of one of the questions that, maybe a lot of people are wondering, is there a particular estimation when it comes to the release of the horror side of the space station?
Me and Code and a bunch of other people are working really hard on actually putting it out on October, but we can sadly not promise everything. But as the time we all have jobs, we all have the different things to work with. Plus, the funny thing is, I'm over in the US, so the time zone differences are really it has to align properly. But we do work on trying to achieve it until October.
No,
That's
fair enough. Yeah, no, fair. I would say, maybe potentially for the spooky season, of course. Well, that's what's up, man. Obviously, that's when it comes to VR and horror experiences, it is kind of a niche, but it is a niche that a lot of people are into that doesn't really get showcased a lot here in VR. So it's really kind of cool to see you guys kind of going down that route when it comes to your guys' world. And obviously, funny enough, kind of to backpedal a little bit, when it comes to the space station, obviously one of the clips that you had shown for like the trailer side was that trick shot that you had made when it comes to the little herb like growing capsule thing. So I guess out of curiosity, was that completely on a whim, or was that done at like a few tries?
Basically wanted to create something because under the statements that they said they wanted to be renewable, like living. So we were like, okay, what is renewable? Fruits and vegetables and all that are. So we created a pot using that, and that was funny enough. One of the first things that we actually worked on. He worked on the animation and everything like that, and also the pod. I mainly just worked on the specific areas and all that.
Mm-hmm. Didn't quite answer the question, but that you already kind of answered the question I was going to ask next. But like that specific clip where you had thrown the little orb into the machine from so far away, was that just completely recorded on a whim, or were you attempting to do that a few times?
I actually did it. Funny enough, first try, and we were like, huh. I talked to him back and forth when we actually finished the world, and like, do you know what would be funny? Trying to actually hit that into the chamber, and just found the calculations of which things because it had tiles up on the roof. So I just like because I played a lot of shooter games, so I just went up there and just shot it, and it first try hit.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, man. I would say, obviously, getting to make all these worlds that people get to explore and experience. Obviously, there's some type of mentality when it comes to being a world creator. So, out of curiosity, what you know, obviously, when it comes to some of your worlds, you've had plenty of people visit. So, what are kind of some of like the most memorable experiences, like you hearing about people visiting your worlds?
Um, that some of the people I basically thought they visited it, and well, they did. Is that they really liked the aesthetics and the scenery that I made with the worlds, and they absolutely loved it. And that filled me with joy because the one reason why I'm creating the worlds that I do is because I want people to enjoy the things that I make.
No, fair. Obviously, when it comes to a lot of your worlds, obviously, there's a lot of different aesthetics and stuff that different people can enjoy. Whether it's beaches or space or just kind of chill hangout areas, or in your case, also another podcast studio. So it is kind of cool to see you branching out into different sub genres of like aesthetics. I guess when it comes to when it comes to like you and your stuff, is there a particular aesthetic that maybe sometime down the line that you want to create? Like, is there like kind of a dream aesthetic you want to eventually aim for?
My dream aesthetic is probably a survival, like overgrown survival map, because I've always loved making different kind of scenery for like survival based stuff. I've always just loved it. Just the green flowers and all that matching in with the different lighting. I absolutely love that. That's one thing I'm still working on to try to achieve.
Hmm. No, well, that's what's up. I mean, definitely would look forward to seeing something like that in the future from you. Let's see here. I was gonna say, because obviously, you know, with how long you've been doing worlds and asset creation, I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask, if there's a piece of advice, that you can give to anybody who's interested in like asset and world creation, what's a good piece of advice that you would give for somebody who's wanting to start out?
Ooh, there is a lot. But
You can
one
name a
thing
few.
I will say, Yeah. One thing I will say is never give up the things that you want to achieve. Nothing is impossible to do. It's just getting the head wrapped around the different things. And it may be difficult, but sooner or later, you're going to achieve something amazing.
Fair enough. I was waiting for it to go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fair. Obviously, when it comes to creation, this is in general, no matter if you're a, VRChat creator or artist or musician, never giving up is definitely, a huge one, especially following passions and everything. Because obviously when it comes to creation in general, you always want to create, until something, gives, but at the same time, being in a healthy balance is also a huge thing when it comes to it. Because obviously there's, and this is kind of one of the questions I want to go into in this regard. Is there anything that you've personally dealt with that, when it comes like maybe burnout or other situations, do you have a particular thing that you do to kind of like alleviate burnout or anything like that?
Yeah. So funny enough, very recently I actually had a bit of a burnout because there was too many projects I basically put on myself. So one thing I did was like, what games have I never finished? So I started playing a lot of Fallout 4 again, and now I'm trying to finish that and actually achieving some things inside of it, and just not like sometimes you can be creative about the games and sometimes it's not. It really depends on person to person. But basically playing other games, even going outside for that matter, as scary as it may be, is also getting some fresh air to basically get your brain to get some new ideas of what you basically want to create, because we can't be creative 24/7. We also have to basically relax our brain to basically fuel up for the next amazing adventure.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And there's always something out there, for anybody that's, interested in learning how to relieve burnout and everything. Because obviously, there's a lot of things that you can do. Take breaks. You can try other passions. You can learn a new hobby. Like there's a lot of different ways to deal with burnout, and playing other games is definitely a huge one for a lot of people. Or going outside. Um, yeah, going outside is definitely a huge one. I guess with as hot as the summer has been, maybe not for everybody, but go to the go to the local lake or pool or pond or whatever, and just enjoy good vibes, to say the least. Um, yeah, man, I would say there's definitely a lot when it comes to going into creation, when it comes to worlds and assets. So I've kind of to go in more in depth with the asset side of things, since we talked a little bit about the worlds. What are some good examples of some of the things that you do create? Like we talked about the furniture pack a little bit, but what are, just to kind of go into the specifics, what are some of the assets you have created?
I have created a lot of smaller, unique things. One for Arcadia for Ree William. I created some of the furniture there, and also a couple of signs. And yeah, also I've also created statues for the game show, the Virtual Gauntlet, and a couple of other things for other creators that really love the things that I've created. Sometimes I just feel like I want to create something, and then I ask someone to give me an idea, and then I just build it and then give them for free. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes it will happen, and then people absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up. I would say it's definitely, obviously when it comes to some of the stuff you worked with, then we'll throw some images up on the screen as well to kind of showcase some of this off. Was there ever one in particular that like holds a dear place in your heart when it comes to your assets?
Definitely the things that people use the most. Whenever I've gotten to the different worlds and people actually sit there and actually use the item like Arcadia for William, it filled me with joy that people were actually using the items and actually sitting on the different chairs and all that. Like that absolutely filled me with joy because that means that the things that I create people actually use.
Yeah, no, fair. And it's definitely amazing to, to hear about these experiences because obviously, when you create something, you want it to be enjoyed, so to definitely, experience that firsthand, definitely, I bet, is a very wholesome thing. So I'm glad to hear that, you get to experience that feeling because not all creators do, unfortunately. It's just, how the world works. But, to be able to kind of experience that, it's definitely a surreal feeling, and I'm very happy that you do get to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, when it comes to you and all of your stuff, because obviously you do have a group to kind of, showcase your stuff and, hold little, fun little hangouts and everything. So I guess, kind of to go into that a little bit, what made you want to create a group to kind of, support your creations and stuff?
The main reason why I created my group was because I saw a lot of groups that did have a lot of creation stuff, want to help and all that, but some of them were hard to actually get into, and I was like, I just want to create my own, why I show people off what is possible to create inside of VRChat and everything else really, because I know there's a lot of people with creative ideas, but they don't know how to get them out, and that was the main reason why I wanted to create my group. To basically help people explore the things that this game has to offer.
Hmm. No, that's what's up, man. I mean, kudos to you and, all the amazing people you work with when it comes to everything. Cause obviously, it is hard to kind of grow as a world and asset creator, compared to like a content creator and stuff. So definitely kudos to you for kind of, sticking to it, and keeping the ball rolling and, helping other people with their projects. Um, so I guess kind of to ask a more personal question in that regard because obviously um you know because you're obviously not American centric, so obviously times and scheduling is a little bit rougher on the edges, um you know but kind of to go into that, what is it like being a creator that has to kind of deal with mostly American side of like VRChat? Like what's kind of some of the pros and cons when it comes to that?
Um, the pros is that whenever they do are online, you could basically go with them and actually try to go into different things. The cons is that it's very hard finding the time zone for it. But I try to basically um, take it into account whenever I do create my different things. That was especially with my first ever event that I did, where I basically tried to make it EU friendly and also US. Really hard, but I actually managed to do that.
No, fair. Honestly, that is a struggle a lot of communities deal with, especially if they're wanting to expand internationally, trying to be able to go from the U.S. time zones to like the more EU and Japanese time zones, Asian time zones, and etc. So definitely kudos to you to wanting to make that middle ground feasible because obviously that's a lot of work to say the least. Um, but yeah, no, I was to say because obviously, um, going from worlds and asset creation, there's definitely some crazy stuff when it comes to that, and not to mention starting out your group and everything. Um, you know, So I guess kind of one of the questions I wanted to ask, because you've been here, since 2017. Despite the VRChat badges thing, because I know some people have accounts and they didn't link it till way later. I'm included in that, unfortunately. So I guess kind of a more fun topic, going from like 2017 VRChat on, what are some experiences like from back then till now that like are your personal favorite experiences when it comes to VRChat as a platform?
Ooh, I basically have always loved to see it evolve, basically, in the different kind of ways because the game has evolved tremendously in the way that they have structured the different kind of things. And it's good to see that they're evolving and not just staying their old grounds of what they basically used to do and actually try to improve on the game. I really do love that.
Yeah, obviously, a lot has changed, different fads going in and out, whether it's the Ugandan knuckles, the brushes, or COVID era. Like, there's so many different eras when it comes to VR chat. I mean, this platform's been around, for over a decade, and it's still continuing to grow on a daily basis. Over 100,000 users daily. It's definitely a crazy thing to think about. Um, but yeah, man, I'll say we are kind of running a little bit out of time when it comes to everything. So first and foremost, I do want to thank you for kind of coming on and kind of showcase sharing some of your stuff and telling us what you're about.
Yeah. Thank you also for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'll say before, obviously, we do end it off. I do want to give you a spot to kind of tell the people where they can find you. Any links you want on the screen in the description. But yeah, feel free to take away and tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so I have a Discord, I have a link tree. I basically have almost everything. Also, I have my stores on Booth, Gumroad, and Jinxie, where I try to publish as many assets as I possibly can and as fast as I can, as humanly possible. Yeah.
No, fair enough. And of course, all the links will be down in the description. So make sure to go check out all the links. And also make sure to join his VRChat group if you're interested in joining that. The group code is going to be EHCO.3392. So make sure to go check out the VRChat group, learn some things about, asset creation and world creation. But yeah, well, dang, I'd say that to be fair, that didn't really feel like, roughly 55 minutes to be fair. But yeah, no, definitely make sure to go check out all of his links, all the shops and everything. All the links will be down in the description. But yeah, ladies, gentlemen, everybody inside and outside the ballpark, that is going to be it for episode 73. Yes, of the Noved Notes podcast. I want to thank you all so much for watching, listening, depending on what platform you're on. Comment down below, what is your favorite world created by Emil? Go check out the worlds and then come back to this comment section and, tell us what your favorite world is. Or if you're, more of an asset, purchaser, go check out some of his assets and tell us down below what some of your favorite assets are. What are your favorite worlds or assets that are created by this this goofy cat right here? But with that, of course, if you are coming back to check out some of the other episodes, why not hit that subscribe button? You're already coming back anyway. But with that, I want to thank you one last time for watching, listening, depending on what platform you're on. And I will see you in the next episode. Take care and peace. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Noved.